Thank you. Welcome to Banff Center Talks. I'm Dominic Girard, and on stage with me is a woman who has a voice for the ages and stories for a lifetime. Rita Coolidge was born in Tennessee. Her father was a pastor, her mother was a teacher, and music was just a small part of growing up in the Coolidge household. I think that's fair to say. It's no surprise then, I suppose, that Rita made music her life. From singing jingles at a radio station to singing backup with Delaney and Bonnie, Joe Cocker, and countless others, and collaborating with Chris Christopherson, whom she married, and then becoming a solo artist as well. And the list just goes on and on. Fair enough?
That's fair.
Ms. Coolidge has made music in many ways, pop, country, jazz, and also explored the music of her own Cherokee heritage. Rita Coolidge has done, if not at all, then certainly more than most of us could probably dream of. And if that wasn't enough, you're also an avocado farmer in Southern California. So top that. It's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Rita Coolidge to Banff Center Talks. Hello, Rita.
Thank you. Thank you, Don.
So Rita, you're sitting here with me on stage at the Banff Center in a small town, Banff, Alberta, surrounded by mountains. You're a long way from Memphis, Tennessee, singing and recording radio jingles for local radio stations. Do you remember any of those jingles, actually?
Actually, no,
No?
I don't. Because the company, Pepper Tanner, that I worked for,
Yeah.
primarily did the kind of radio spots. So we mostly sang call letters
Whoa.
more than jingles. We did some jingles.
So your
But it
job
was-
was literally singing letters of the alphabet.
Well, what like WABC,
Yeah.
and or whatever it was in different towns, and we would have the same music, and just change the call letters. So some days were extremely boring,
Yeah.
but other days were a lot more fun because it's always fun to sing with people, no
But-
matter what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, you were getting paid. You were starting something. You were doing fine, right?
That was very important because I was right out of Florida State and had wanted to teach school when I went to Memphis, where my parents lived at the time. And I couldn't get a job teaching because there's a university there, and all the teaching positions were filled by Memphis State University students. So I went to my next love, which was music, and found a job. You know, it wasn't really easy to make a living in music. It still isn't for a lot of people, and
Right.
to be able to actually have security with a job, and then that gave me the opportunity to start checking out the recording studios and the music scene in Memphis.
And off you went.
Off I went.
I think it's kind of interesting that singing was a backup choice to teaching. That,
Well, actually, when I graduated from Florida State, I had a degree in art
yeah.
and
Visual
a minor.
art, right?
Beg your pardon?
Visual art?
Visual arts,
Yeah.
and minor in art history and English. And I was offered an assistantship for graduate work at Florida State, which was very prestigious. And they have a really great art department. And so I went to the head of the art department and said, I really will not be happy with this position unless I give music a chance.
Right.
I said, if this is still here in a year, I'm going to go to Memphis and I'm going to try to get in the music business. And if I'm successful, I'll come back in a year and let you know. It'll be yes or no. So I went back after that year and said, I'm going to go for the music. That's what I did.
Thanks very much, but this thing's taken off. I'm going to go for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you first started on the music career, what kind of ambitions did you have at first? To just make a go at it and see where it goes? Or were you just charting a course for stars?
I don't think it was stars because I never got in the business because I thought I was a great singer or because I wanted to be a star. I did it because I love music.
Right.
And I think that's reflected in the multiple genres of music that I've recorded throughout my career. So I never thought I was great. And really to kind of confirm that, I went with a producer from Memphis up to Nashville. And we drove up and met with some producers up there, and they all turned me down, and they said, you're not star quality, so you better go back to Memphis and get a job teaching. So I did go back to Memphis, but I actually got back to Memphis, and Pepper Tanner, the jingle factory, had started a record label,
Hmm.
which was Pepper Records, and I was the first artist to record for Pepper Records, which turned out to be another bonus.
Yeah.
Because when I went to California some months later, I had a regional hit, only in Los Angeles, a #1 single.
Wow. Did that blow your mind a little
It,
bit?
yeah, because I didn't know till I got there. So I got there and doors opened. I was doing TV shows with people that I didn't know. They were huge, but I didn't know that because I hadn't lived there.
Hmm.
But it really did open a lot of doors as far as people having credibility as a singer, because I didn't have to go in and audition to do background work in Los Angeles because everybody knew my record, and it was like, sure, especially Delaney and Bonnie.
Yeah. They took you on the road and you sang backup singer for them, right?
Well, I had met them in Memphis. They
Mhm.
were fulfilling their last commitment to Stax Records before they went on to do their Elektra,
Mhm.
first record with Elektra. So I met them there, met Leon Russell and Delaney and Bonnie and all of their band. And before we left Memphis, they had asked me to come to California. Leon also asked me to come to California, I think for different reasons. But Delaney and Bonnie wanted me to come out and sing on their first album, and that was really great.
Do you look back on your career already and wonder about how much of it was controlled, how much was just being right place at the right time, albeit with a singing fit amount of talent with you?
You know what? I absolutely believe that I was in the right place at the right time. And, you know, if divine intervention is a part of that, then I believe that too.
Hmm.
It's also recognizing an opportunity when it's there.
Hmm.
And, you know, not so much saying, what can I get out of this, but what can this experience be for me, and what is that going to lead to? Because I think that we constantly grow as artists, and when opportunities are there that offer growth, then I think that I was always jumping right on that.
Yeah.
And having a lot of fun, too.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of growth, can we go back a little bit? You grew up in Tennessee,
I
right?
did.
How important was music in the Coolidge household?
It was everything. My grandmother, who was born in 1878, was a big part of my life. She was my maternal grandmother, and she wrote songs and poems her entire life. She went to Texas in a covered wagon when she was a little girl. And her family, her father played banjo. Somebody else in the family played fiddles. So when they would camp at night, these wagon trains would gather for safety. The Stewart wagon provided the music for the dances at night.
Hmm.
So there was always music in her life, which was handed down to us. And I think it was really important for both of my grandmothers that we, down the line, make music about our family and about our people, which Priscilla and I did.
Yeah. I think I've heard you talk about how Priscilla thought, or you thought maybe that she was the better singer of the two.
I think Priscilla, you mean Priscilla was the better singer for sure.
Yeah.
Priscilla studied voice from the time she was 12 years old and went to the University of Tennessee on a full Grace Moore scholarship. So she really was a trained vocalist. I just did it because I liked it. I never thought that I would have a better, more successful career than Priscilla, because she was Miss Nashville, Miss Sigma Chi, Miss everything. She was just gorgeous. And I was just her scrawny little sister.
And how about your parents? What role did they play in your musical upbringing?
Well, Daddy, as you mentioned, was a preacher.
Yeah.
And so there was music always in church. And my mother played piano and organ in church. And my sisters, there's a third sister, Linda. The three of us had a trio, and we sang as a trio from the time I was 2 years old. And then just as we grew up, we kept singing, and there were regular rehearsals with the Coolidge girls. We did talent shows in Nashville when we were kids. And Mother was always, once a week, we gathered around the piano to learn another song. And that's where harmonies, I think, came in, and where I learned harmony. Although, on some level, I think some people are just born able to sing harmonies. My granddaughters can sing harmony. If I'm in the car with my daughter and my three granddaughters, and a song comes on that we all know, it's full harmony. Nobody taught them. They just do it.
Huh. You don't want me doing that. How important was the family's Cherokee heritage at that young an age?
It was always important because we knew where we came from. My mother was Cherokee and Scott. Mm-hmm. My grandmother, Laura Stewart, that was born in 1878, was a direct descendant of Mary, Queen of Scots. So Mother held that very, very highly in her heart. But Daddy never forgot where he came from, and I think he struggled as a lot. I know he did, and felt the sting of prejudice when he was a boy growing up in Texas. And throughout the Depression, they actually lived in just a lean-to on the beach in Texas and didn't really have a home. Yeah. And so he really instilled in us the values that I think were so important for us to grow up with, and that really was not to judge anybody by their position in society or the color of their skin or their gender or their sexual preference or anything. All people are equal. And that's what Daddy taught to us as children, and to be proud of our Cherokee heritage. And he taught it in church as well. During the Civil Rights Movement, my father stood up and said, if any black man or woman or child walks into this church, I expect you to seat them as you would any child of God. And after church that day, the deacons got together and tried to decide whether they were going to fire Daddy or not. And I remember that kind of like, wow, my dad really believes and stands up for what he teaches.
It feels like you've carried that your whole life. Like
it's from the time I was this big.
Yeah. Let's go back to Bonnie and Delaney, dive back into the career a little bit. What's it like on the road as a backup singer back then?
With Delaney and Bonnie, being on the road was just constant music. It wasn't a constant party in the sense that a lot of bands, kind of the lifestyle of a lot of bands on the road, but Delaney and Bonnie were music. We would sing. If we were on a bus tour, we would sing on the bus while we're driving in the afternoon. We would go to sound check when we got to the hotel. We'd check in, go to sound check, and go back, change, do the show, go back to somebody's room after the show and sing more. We sang all the time. And it was just it was the greatest experience, I think, coming from Florida State and not being in that constant musical atmosphere with people from the South. I was from the South, and so were they. Yeah. So we shared that, but sharing just that love of music and harmony, and constantly, do you know this song? Do you know that song? And we would do old blues tunes or pop tunes or whatever, just somebody would start singing and everybody joined in. The guitars were going. This was from the first time I worked with them through the European tour with Eric Clapton as the guitar player in the band, and George Harrison on the bus. We always sang all day and all night.
Do you think there's something about backup singing in that era that has been lost to how music is made today?
Absolutely. I don't know if any of you are familiar with 20 Feet from Stardom, which was a documentary-winning film. But there's so many background singers who literally don't. I mean, they had tremendous careers as background singers, and so many of them, like Darlene Love, ended up doing some cleaning houses. Yeah. Because the work fell out of background singing, because you could record one chorus with one voice and then digitally stack those voices and move them to the next chorus and move them to the next chorus. And suddenly, voices, real people, were not vital anymore.
Right. Wow.
So, yeah, it changed quite a bit. changed a lot. Claudia Lanier, who was on the Joe Cocker tour, is and sang with the Rolling Stones. She was Brown Sugar. She still is. But she sang with them for years, and ended up going back to Los Angeles and teaching Spanish at a community college, which she still does.